Are you tired of Xcode feeling slow, cluttered, or just not quite right for your coding style? What if I told you with just a few tweaks, you could transform your Xcode workspace into a lean, mean coding machine tailored specifically for your productivity? Stick around because I'm about to show you the exact customization hacks and hidden tools I use to make Xcode work for me, not the other way around. Everything's timestamped below if you want to check out a specific part. Let's first start off with the visuals and the customization of the code editor, where we spend most of our time writing and analyzing code. To access the settings of Xcode, you'll need to go to the top left toolbar while Xcode's selected and go to the Settings tab. You can also do Command, comma. To adjust our editor, you'll want to go to the Themes tab, kind of looks like a little bit of a paintbrush, and from here you can actually select different themes, and as you select the different themes, you'll be able to see the changes in real time. The source editor also allows us to change the color, text sizing, and even font of our entire project. And you can change these things individually. So if I wanted to make my strings even a different font or even a different font size, if I really wanted to make them large in this example, I totally can. If you want these changes to reflect across the entirety of the code editor, you will need to select the first one, shift, and select all the other ones you want to change. If you want to update the font, you can click on this T box here, which will bring up all the fonts available on your font book. So if you download any from the internet, such as Google Fonts, and install them on your machine, they will be available here. You can also use the search feature to find what you'd like. Otherwise, there is a little bit of a collection with fun, creative, PDF, etc. Or, just search for the ones you want. So if I wanted to make, for some reason, my code editor Times New Roman, and I wanted it to be 18, I totally could. Now that theme should save on the left side. You can also make your own themes by pressing the plus button and duplicating the theme or building up the theme from a template. There are a couple more things you can change, such as the background color, which will bring up this color wheel. And you can adjust the background color as you'd like. There's also the selection. So if we highlight some text here, we can change what that selection looks like, and you make it whatever you'd like. So if you wanted this to be more yellowy, etc., it's totally up to you. Maybe like highlighting things as if you were highlighting them from a book. You can also change the current line, so you know always where you're at. I wouldn't recommend actually making your colors like this. This looks a little bit cursed in my opinion, but you can make your code editor work exactly the way you want to, as well as change the color of the invisibles. I would typically recommend leaving this as the same color as your background, as this is those invisible spaces within your code, such as from indents, etc. You can also change how the cursor behaves. So by default, if we click on our code editor, you'll see it's this kind of flashing vertical line. We can change it to instead be the underline cursor, so it has a little bit more of a terminal look. Or the block cursor, which also looks more like the terminal on Mac OS. Totally up to you. I like the vertical. You can also change the spacing if you want really tight spacing between the lines, a little bit more relaxed. I find normal is pretty good though. And the console in the bottom here for any of your print statements or things that you're logging and tracking, you can also edit that as well here. If you're curious about what I use, I like to have a big font size. I actually don't mind light mode, but I know a lot of people prefer the dark mode for the videos. And I use the Fira code. I'll put the link in the description to that font if you want the exact one that I use. You can also change and adjust the font on the fly by going to the top of the window editor, and you'll see that there's the themes here. You can select and change these anytime you want. The font size you can increase or decrease if you're someone who's used to certain syntax coloring. So let's say you really liked the JavaScript coloring, right? This one's pretty basic for JavaScript, but depending on what you like to use, there's so many options here. If you want to use the one for the theme, you will need to do default for file type. I find that sometimes I have to go to another file, then come back and it does the refresh. Under the text editing tab right next to our themes, we can also show or hide line numbers, the code folding ribbon. We'll talk about code folding in just a moment. The code structure while scrolling, I recommend leaving this one on. So if we do have something like a structure that encapsulates a big part of the view, you'll see that at the top here, as we continue to scroll, it's kind of telling us like, hey, you're working within the structure and you're working within this variable body some view, or maybe even a function. If we turn this off, now I like to leave it on because it's just a reminder of where exactly I am. A big portion that I like to keep active is the line wrapping. You can see with these longer stretches of text, they kind of trail off and you'd have to scroll over to the side. Up to you if you want to include them or not. The highlight instances of select symbol is really useful. I would leave this one on. There's also key bindings. So this is where you can actually customize and edit your key bindings. I'm pretty bad at using key bindings. In my head, I usually actually remember which drop-down menu or where it is on the interface, but you can customize, edit, or even filter out and find different key bindings, especially if you're someone who's trying to learn all of them. So for example, if we wanted to find the key binding for building, Command B, but we can also select it and edit it. If you're really into this, you can even manage your key bindings and create different key binding profiles. If you really want to be a pro, there's also source control, and this will allow you to automatically push and pull, commit, etc., as well as change how your source control navigator is sorted, whether you want to do by name or by date. Totally up to you. If you have a different default branch name, I would just leave this as main, and the Git tab is where you can control your GitHub account and how your name appears to others. You want to customize even things like sound or what's showing under the behaviors. You can even change for things like the build or the testing, what happens when things start. You can even, choose to play a sound, an announcement, and things like that. I don't really use these a lot, but they can be cool for accessibility or a little bit of extra flair. In navigation, there's a couple things I want to talk about here, mainly the activation. When a new window or tab opens, make it active. So if we leave this checked, which is default, when you open a new item, so if we click on a file in the project navigator, double click a symbol to jump to its definition, open a new tab, that newly opened item, the window or tab, will automatically become the focused one. This means it will immediately come to the foreground, your cursor will likely be there, and you can start interacting with it right away. If unchecked, when a new item is opened, it will appear, but will not necessarily become active or take focus. Our current window, tab, editor, etc. will remain the active one. You then have to manually click on the new opened item to bring it into focus and interact with it. The other big one is the navigation style here, open in tabs versus open in place. Open in tabs by default is when you navigate to a new file, definition, or linked item, it'll open a new tab within your existing editor window. So you can see here, I just have a couple Swift files. We have the different tabs up here with the content view, Xcode feature apps. If we do the open in place instead, when we navigate to a new file, definition, or linked item, it will replace the content of the current active editor pane. Something you'll also notice is as you change this, the clicks here and the shortcuts will also update. I would recommend open in tabs, but if you don't love a lot of tabs, etc., you can do the open in place. You can also change what your command click and option click do. I would leave these as default, as jump to definition and show quick help are typically the ones that I'll want to do right away, and I don't want to do command control click or option control. That's a lot of steps. If you're adjusting your code editor, you might have the black background here, but depending on the appearance from your system, or you can do light or dark, you can adjust this code editor to either be white for the light mode or black for the dark mode. I don't hate light mode, but I know a lot of people do. So you can either manually set it here or have it be based off what your system preferences are. You can even choose to hide or show the file extensions, so Swift, etc. All right, let's next talk a little bit more about the workspace itself. So when we're working in SwiftUI for a view, here we have our content view. We have the canvas on the right. We can enable or disable it by going to this tab in the top right, turning off the canvas or turning it on. Should be under the editor canvas as well. Something to note is for any of these windows that we're talking about, if we make them large or small, any size that we make them, when we reopen them, it will remember the size and spacing that we had determined. You can show or hide the debug area in the bottom right. This is where your logs will appear. You can choose to show or hide the variable view with this left tab here. And the console for those print statements, the logs, with the right tab here. So if you only want to see one or the other or both, you can hide with the show console again. You can hide the project navigator, it's just called the navigator, by clicking the tab at the left here. And there's even an additional tab on the right side where we have different things that tell us about the identity, the attributes inspector, etc. This is called the inspectors. So if you really just want to, have your code editor, you want to kind of just vibe out, you can make your editor look and feel the way you want. And anytime you want those windows, you can just bring them back and then hide them when you're not using them. As a productivity hack, let's say you absolutely love this text, my tasks. You want to use it across other apps or other places in your app, and you hate copying and pasting. You can highlight the selected code, you can right click, and you can create code snippet. Now this is going to go to your code snippet library, and let's say I want to call this best text ever. You can even include a summary, the language, the platform that's available, and you can go ahead and hit done. And now when we go to our library in the top right, we go to our Snippets tab here. We can drag and drop this whenever we want. And the coolest part is we can also go to other Xcode projects. So I'll just open up a random one here on my computer. I can go to my code snippets and I can add my text here. So this can be used for different views. It can be used for syntax. If you have some logic that you want to repeat, you can actually create your own custom syntax library as well. I've talked about this in previous videos, but also the views and modifiers are within this library as you add different images to your assets. If you have colors in your assets, SF symbols, use the project library to save time. Let's say we wanted to add a list here. There's some examples of the syntax from the documentation, or we can even just drag and drop it into our code here, and we'll have placeholders for the content that we need to fill out. Something that I barely use, but is really great for beginners, is if we open up the inspectors tab on the right here and we go to the attributes inspector, kind of looks like the abacus. And if we're working with a view, so let's say this text here where it says my tasks, we can see on the right we have the text. We can update this. So we can say my new task, we can hit return. It'll update the string value here and what's being displayed on the screen. You can even choose to add things like accessibility labels, and you can see it adds the placeholder and the text value here. Really great if you're just getting into accessibility. You can even adjust and change the font, and you can even see, I already have the large font here, but I can update it. Maybe if I wanted to be a call out, etc. This is really good if you're not sure what values that you can use for the fonts. There's even weight if we wanted to make it bold, semi-bold, thin, etc. We can do the color, and we have our default colors here. The accent color, and there's also the custom, which will open up the color wheel. For some reason, I find this one to be a little bit buggy where it kind of pops up, goes back. You'll just want to click on the custom again, and then you'll see that you can adjust the color as you see fit. So if we wanted to make it like a light blue here, we can then click off. I don't know why it likes to pop back up. Click back on the code editor, then come back, and I don't know, it's really weird with the custom colors. It kind of freaks out a little bit. You also set the line limit, alignment. There's even like the option to do the padding, and in this case I have the padding on the bottom, so you can see that this bottom check mark is clicked. If you want to also include the padding on the top, we can choose to even increase it, decrease it, so that's going to add those number values there. So if you're someone especially coming from UIKit where you're used to using those attributes inspectors, this is a huge one. There's also a frame as well, and as we go to different views, so if we go to the list, there's the list style, so if we want to make it grouped, inset, group, plain, etc. There's so much you can do with this. Great for people who are still learning SwiftUI. Okay, I got a couple more tricks up my sleeve, not quite done yet. Let's talk a little bit about code folding. So let's say I'm working in a really big view, and you can always double click and see what code's encapsulating what, but let's say I'm done with this list. I don't even want to think about it anymore, and I need to reclaim some editing space. So I'm going to put my cursor in the view that I'd like to fold. I'm going to go to the top here, editor, code folding, and I'm going to go ahead and fold this, right? I still know that there's a list here and there's these dots where I can double click and it'll re-expand, but this is a really great way when you need to reclaim space and you have so many functions or like lists or views, right? You can fold it to really reclaim that space and reopen it anytime. There's even the option to fold methods and functions and unfold them quickly. You can even keybind this. You can fold comment blocks, etc., etc. But essentially where your cursor is or what you're highlighting, you can choose to fold it. So if we really wanted to, not see this navigation view anymore, we could totally just fold that up and you'll see the amount of space that kind of comes back to us here. That one looks pretty funny. And again, you can either unfold or double click on these lines. The other one that I need to use a lot more is refactoring. In this project, referencing name a lot, but let's say, I need to change the value of this name. Maybe I want it to be like, task name or something like that. But the problem is now I'm going to go ahead and find every instance of name. Look at all these errors. Oh my God, that is so awful. Well, the solution is you can right click on a variable or anything you need to rename, refactor, rename, or extract it to a file. You'll see our code folding happens again. And as I start to type out my changes, all of these different variables are going to change. And if I don't want to include a certain one, we can press on this little, I don't even know what that's called, like cancel button. that appears next to the variable. Otherwise, we can rename. And now in our file, all those names have been changed to task name. This can actually cross multiple Swift files as well, which is really, really handy. Another great one is we can jump to different options such as variables, functions, or even tasks or to-dos, marks that we've left for ourselves. At the top, next to our content view, we have a second drop-down menu. And let's say I had this flag where I want to add a new task. I can jump to it and be brought exactly where I need to be. So in this case, I had a mark to add a new task. If I were to add things like the to-dos, so if we do to-do, fix everything, we can go to our window here and we can see that, oh, I have a little to-do, kind of looks like a little list, and it'll take me to the fix everything. The marks are displayed by these little orange flags, and different variables and functions, etc. will also appear here. Last thing I want to tell you about is Xcode extensions. If you've used Visual Studio Code before, you're probably pretty familiar with extensions. There are some available on Xcode. I personally don't have any, but these are worth exploring. Maybe in the future, I'll do a quick video covering some of these. You can click on them just like an app in the App Store. Let's check out Code Cows extension, which allows you to add hundreds of ASCII counts to your source code. All right, so I guess there's some of these for fun, but there might be some. Maybe this comment wrapper for Xcode will be a little bit more helpful, I'm sure. So you can check these out as well. But for the most part, Xcode's pretty good at including all the tools that you need, but maybe you'll find some good things in extensions you didn't know you needed. So that is how to make Xcode yours. Custom themes, efficient layouts, customizing your shortcuts, all tailored to help you move faster, stay focused, and get your code done. Like and subscribe for more iOS dev tips. Let me know your favorite workflow tweaks in the comments. Dream big, code bigger, and we'll see you in the next one.